To add authentication to our Next.js app, we're going to use NextAuth.js, which is a full-feature authentication system with built-in providers such as Google, Facebook, or Github. It also supports GWT, email password, and Magic Links authentication. So first, install NextAuth using npm install save NextAuth. Next, from within the app.js file, import the provider from NextAuth/client. Wrap everything inside this provider and set the session prop using pageprops.session to allow session state to be shared between pages. Then create a Next.js API route by creating a file in pages, API, and auth. Name .nextauth around square bracket .js. Inside that file, import NextAuth and providers from NextAuth/providers. Next, call and export NextAuth to automatically create and handle the API routes for authentication. From within NextAuth, we can then pass an object to configure our built-in OAuth providers. So let's use providers.google to use Google as our authentication provider and pass it a client ID property, which we are going to retrieve from the environment variable, and a client secret property as well. Now, open the Google Cloud Console, create and set up your account if you haven't done it before, and go to the credential page. Create a new credential and select OAuth Client ID. Choose Web Application as the application type. Specify a name for your new client ID. Define the URIs by using localhost 3000 for the development application. And set the authorized redirect URI to localhost 3000/API/auth/callback/Google, which is an API route automatically created by NextAuth. Then click Create. Copy your client ID and secret. Then create a new file named .env.local and paste the values here. Make sure to keep this file in local, don't share it, and obviously don't push it to your GitHub remote repository. So far, we have created our API routes for the authentication using NextAuth and configure Google as our OAuth provider. Now let's add a signing button to our user interface so that our users can actually sign in into our app. Open the header.js file and import use session and signing from NextAuth/client. Then call the use session hook, which you can use to check if the user is signing. Inside the JSX, we check if we are still waiting for the user session. If yes, we won't return anything. Otherwise, we check the session object and render a signing button if the session is empty. Otherwise, it means the user is authenticated. In this case, we render the user's picture and a greeting message with the user's name. Finally, we style everything with the Tailwind utility classes to align the elements and add some spacing between them. Before checking our application, let's also edit our index.js file to conditionally render a different button if the user is authenticated or not. As before, import use session and sign in from NextAuth/client at the top, and call the use session hook to retrieve the session. Finally, check the logging state variable and the session. We display our button and set the onClick event with the sign-in method if the user is not authenticated. Otherwise, we render a new link to redirect the user to the blog post creation page that we will create later on in this project. So for now, I will set the href value to the home page. Don't forget to add the import statement for the link component and the pencil icon component. Now let's go to our browser and check if the authentication process actually works. As you can see, we now have a sign in button, and if we click on it, we get redirected to the /API/auth/signing route created by NextAuth. Inside this page, we have a single button to sign in with Google, as it is the only way to authenticate users we have implemented in our application. Finally, once we sign in with Google, we get redirected to the home page of our application, where we can see our user's picture and name, along with the new Write a blog post button. Now that we're able to sign in into our application, let's go ahead and add the ability to sign out from the application. Let's go back to our editor. And as you can see inside the components folder, I've already created two more components, the flyout menu and the mobile menu. Those components are pretty straightforward. They contain a basic JSX layout to render some navigation links from their props. You can find the code source of those components by following the link in the description below. So along with the navigation link, let's add a button to let the user sign out. We can use the sign out method from NextAuth to do so. Don't forget to import it at the top and to import the logout icon from arrow icons as well. Now copy the JSX for this button and open the mobile menu, as we are going to render the same thing for this component. The mobile menu component will be used to display the menu on small screen, as its name suggests. It renders our logo component, a button to close the menu, and the same navigation links from the flyout menu. And everything is rendered to the DOM using a React portal. So at the very bottom, paste the button we have defined earlier, and don't forget to add the required import statement as well. Alright, now let's go back to our header component and import the flyout menu and the mobile menu components. Create a new state variable to check if the menu is open and to toggle it. Create a reference variable as well using the React useRef hook. We'll need this reference for our flyout menu. Then scroll down, change the div element on line 63 to a button element, and set the onClick event handler to toggle the menu using the previous state value. Let's also add a chevron icon inside our button to make it look like a drop-down menus button. And add a few styles here and there to make sure our layout is responsive across different screen sizes and that everything is aligned properly using Flexbox. Then wrap this button inside a div, set its display mode to relative using Tailwind CSS, and set the ref prop using the ref we have created earlier. Add the flyout menu below the button, use the menu open state variable to set the show prop, implement the onClose method to close the menu, and set the container ref prop. Next, add the mobile menu at the bottom, just before the closing header tag, and set the show and onClose props to it. Finally, we need to check the screen size to decide which menu to display. We want to display the flyout menu only on large screens and the mobile menu on small screens. For that, we're going to use a React hook named useMediaQuery from the hooks folder. This hook is a custom React hook I've implemented earlier and that you can find in the source code by clicking the link in the description below. As you can see, this hook is matching any media query we pass to it with a set of values using the corresponding web API. Then it listens to any changes using Event Listener to update the value it returns which correspond to the current matching media query. So If we go back to our header.js file, we can use this hook to detect if the current screen size is large or not. We pass a media query to check if the width is greater or equal to 640 pixels, and if it matches, we return true, otherwise we return false. Finally, we update the show prop of the flyout menu to show this menu only if it is open and if we are on a large screen device. And for the mobile menu, we display it only if it is open and we are not on a large screen device. That's it. We now have the ability to sign out from the application.